Well, to my surprise, my great surprise, we are not in a recession after all, according to the fake numbers in the government. And it is what it is. I mean, you can argue and yell at the clouds and get off my lawn, but the facts are we're not going to record a negative QQ, and which is shocking to me, shocking. Because the reason I was predicting a recession was because our imports would be through the roof because of the increasing value of the US dollar. Let me just give you basic economics 101. If you want to have an export economy where you're exporting your goods overseas, and that's what you think is going to lead to economic growth in your country, which doesn't, the way you do is you inflate, devalue your dollar. The cheaper your dollar is, your yen, your won, your dollar, your euro, whatever it is, the cheaper it is, the less expensive it is for other countries to buy your goods, which means your goods are basically on sale in those countries, and you can export your way to theoretically prosperity. It never works for long term, but that's what people think. So we got to export, we got to reduce the value of the dollar. We got to export. All right, so what happened in Q1 was the GDP was negative because the exports, the United States was importing a hell of a lot more than we exported. And everyone's like, oh my goodness, and way more than people thought. And then I said, well, if that happened in Q1, it's going to be even worse in Q2 because the dollar is up 20% year to date over these other currencies from which we buy our goods. So if Q1 was negative because of the imports we were bringing into the country and the lack of exports because our goods were too expensive. Again, Japanese yen, let's just for simplicity, it's $1 for $1. All right, now Japanese yen is 90 cents for $1. Inherently, Japanese has a 10% gain in terms of their exports. I mean, for simplicity, because what happens now is we can buy 10% more Japanese goods for the same price we were when there's parity in the dollars. All right? Now you drop another 10% because the Japanese yen and other currencies are down 20% year to date. That means it costs for us, for every dollar we spend, we actually buy 20% more foreign goods because the Japanese yen and other currencies are worth 20% less. Conversely, that also means it costs them $1.20 to buy what they used to be able to buy $1 of our goods. So they have to spend more money to buy the same level. So we are buying more. With $1, we're able to buy more of their goods. And with $1, they're able to buy less of our goods because the dollar has increased in value so much. So I'm inherently thinking, well, shoot, my goodness, this totally means that we're in a recession. If exports and imports are that much part of the GDP, which they are, there's no way the exports aren't going to be through the imports to us will be through the roof, and exports will go way down because the dollar is that much higher in value. But check this out, and conservative treehouse. If you're not reading CTH, you're wrong, man. According to Reuters survey of economists, GDP likely increased at a 0.5% annualized rate in the second quarter. Why? Why did it do that? Because U.S. trade imbalance shrinks as imports plummet. What? How did imports plummet when the dollar is 20% higher? That makes no sense. I'm going to show you how. It's all shenanigans. But anyway, Sundance will say consumer demand has collapsed. Not 100%, but still, I'm going to show you something here. All right, so let's go down here. The U.S. trade deficit in goods narrowed sharply in June as exports surged. That makes no sense from basic economics. Let's see. Well, business, all right, right here. The better than expected reports from the Commerce Department left economists scrambling to update their GDP for the last quarter. The goods deficit shrank 5.6%. Goods exports increased by $4.4 billion when the dollar was increasing by 20%. It makes no sense. Why? There were strong gains in exports of food. But imports of food fell by $1.5 billion. Well, that kind of makes sense because the dollar is growing so rapidly, and countries who are starving to death say, India, we're not exporting any food anywhere. We need it here to feed our billion people. But we still need more food. We don't have enough because of the Ukraine and all this crap with fertilizer and stuff. So not only are we not exporting, we still have to buy more food from America. So we're going to pay whatever we got to pay to feed our people. but we're not going to export. So that makes sense. They said we got to feed the people. If we got to pay $1.20, what used to cost $1, we'll do that. On top of that, we're not going to send America anything. So, so our exports rose because of literally the dire nature of no food, and our imports declined because other countries said we're not exporting our food. But there's more to the story here. All right, we'll check this out. According to Reuters, GDP increased at 0.5% annualized in the second quarter. The survey was conducted, let's see. Does a 0.5% look familiar? So this is what Sundance said back in June. I'm going to tell you, this is freaking nuts, man. Let's see. Atlanta Fed revised the second quarter GDP to estimate negative 1%, but keep going down here. Let's see. Right here. Conservative Treehouse. This is in June. I remember reading this. I thought, no way. Sundance is wrong this time. He's gone too far. Conservative Treehouse predicts the Bureau of Economic Analysis is likely to generate a statistical report somewhere in the 0.5% range, even though the dollar is up 20% and Atlanta Fed revises second quarter GDP to negative 1% for a recession. Just enough. So we're expecting the shenanigans to report a 0.5% range. Just enough positive GDP to avoid the literal definition of recession. The BEA report will be issued at the end of July, and if they follow the recent patterns, they will likely underestimate the inflation rate as undercalculate the import data. Yep, well, that's exactly what is happening here, and it's funny. So let's see. There are three other factors that affect the import data. Operation Hide the Ships continues. California regulation issue. We're going to keep the ships at bay. We don't want them coming in because we don't want to declare them as imports. But watch imports surge in the third quarter. There's an ongoing labor dispute with the West Coast Longshoremen Union, and shippers trying to avoid issues are rerouting to Gulf of Mexico and East Coast. Number 3, there's an ongoing independent trucker strike and protests happening at California ports. All these provide convenient justifications for lower port data, which conveniently, for the Biden administration, inflates GDP because they're not getting the imports. The Bureau of Economic Analysis is likely to attribute a 0.5% calculation of GDP to the lowering of imports, a deduction of GDP. Imports hurt GDP, and then apply a liberal dose of inflation to the value of goods and services created by the economy. Yep. A 0.5% BEA avoids the pesky technical definition of recession. Anyway, so I want to kind of go back here because let's see if we can find that. Hold on a second. I want to show you guys something. I can find it. So here's Brian Westbury from First Trust Economics. Look, big fan, long time, first time. Real GDP in Q1 was revised slightly lower to negative 1.5% annual rate, and this is in May, I think, is when he wrote this. I can't remember, but anyway, so I want to show you something here. Let's see. So why did real GDP drop in Q1? A host of factors that are likely temporary. First, a massive surge in imports, which resulted in a drag of 3.2 percentage points on growth. A massive surge in imports. So, if you're part of the Sniffy Joe administration, or you're getting funding from Sniffy Joe, what do you do to make sure there's no recession on your watch? You make sure there's no massive surge in imports in Q2. You hold ships out at bay. I mean, it's just that simple, just like Sundance at Conservative Treehouse was saying. And that's why I said we are in a recession, a literal recession, not just any kind of technical recession, because there's no way with the dollar going up 20%, there wouldn't be a continued massive surge in imports. But when it comes to exports, I didn't expect, what we send overseas. I did not expect food to be bought. A massive exports of food to other countries who are starving to death. Jesus, crazy. On top of that, we're importing less of their food because they're not sending it to us, even though our dollar's up 20%. Doesn't make any sense, but there you go, man. So I officially say I was wrong. We are not in a recession. It's shenanigans. And it still sucks for the people who are starving to death overseas. It sucks to be them. But, I hate to say that's not our problem. Our problem is right here. And we just look to the east in that swamp that is Washington, D.C. to recognize why this is happening. Because we're run by lunatics. And if you think Republicans are the solution, I mean, they're better. Think again. They're all. Did I hear, what's his name? Mitch McConnell like, oh, Nancy Pelosi, you should go to Taiwan to show China that we're not scared. I was like, yeah, that's great. Let's promote. Let's keep poking. Keep poking. All right. Love to hear your thoughts. We'll see you